Good morning, everyone. And most of you, I think, I have met earlier, but glad to be again back here. And today we are going to talk about role of data in digital lending value chain. And why we are talking about digital lending value chain always because in the last few years, couple of years, there's been too much of a pressure on the financial industry, and that is primarily because one has to manage this entire business contactless, taking care of the employees, taking care of the consumers, and also there are evolving regulatory changes. So it is becoming very important that most of the organization in the lending side adopt the digital way of doing things. And one of the digital way, which is a clearly reflection of what Digital Fifth is also doing, is that conducting these kind of programs digitally, and all of us are able to interact much freely and much conveniently. So broadly, I've covered this. We'll talk about digital lending and what are the how those things and scenarios are changing, and why digital is important at this point of time. And when somebody is going for a digital mode of acquisition, doing the business, I think two things is becoming very important. One is data, and second is technology. I'm sure all of you are aware that there's a lot of early adoption happening in the industry at a various places in terms of the technology, and also there have been some places where the data is being used appropriately, but I think still there is a long way to go where we can really use all the data which is available either in public domain or through some of the available authorized agencies. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll keep the question and answer at the end. While if you feel anywhere that you have some questions, maybe in the during the slides also we can answer and try my answer. But let's keep this towards the end so that it would be easy to kind of connect the full context. A quick introduction. I think Samir already spoke about me. A quick introduction about Authbridge. So I'm working in the revenue side of the Authbridge on the BFSI space, and Authbridge is one of the uh, leading player in terms of alternate data and technology solutions. So we are working on authentication, fraud and risk analysis, identity management, digital onboarding, and some of the risk intelligence, because obviously we provide the services towards the alternate data, and that helps us in terms of providing the solutions around the risk intelligence. And I'll talk about it more in detail. So let's understand. And actually, I'm starting with a very I mean, I would say that macro level view, that how is the digital lending evolving currently, right? So how is the scenarios changing? All of us know that in the last couple of years, because of this pandemic thing, many places it is becoming a bottleneck that lending organization, financial institutions have to come up and ensure that they are meeting all the regulatory guidelines. At the same time, they have to manage the portfolios. At the same time, they have to reach out to the customers. And there are some changes, I would say, in terms of the customer repayment behavior as well, though it is not fully reflected if you look at the credit bureau data at this point of time. But there are more of a credit card revolver, more of a people who are opting for moratorium, etc., and the loan restructuring. So I think this is putting a lot of stress on the financial services. But one of the things which I personally feel and feel proud to be part of that financial institution ecosystem is that this is one industry which has really come back very strongly and very sharply. And one of the things which is clearly reflecting why they are able to come back very sharply is that because everybody started adopting the technology, everybody started working on the data, every organization started finding the ways to reach out to the customers directly. So the direct to consumer interactions have really gone very high. And if you look at the some of the things which is changing in the overall space, which is also being promoted and endorsed by the regulators, are how do you make sure that digitally you are able to connect to the customer? And then there has been a lot of changes in the KYC regulations. There has been changes in terms of providing moratorium, loan restructuring, some of the flexibility which has been given. And I think this is one of the great steps which the regulators are doing in terms of coming and promoting and probably supporting this industry. I put together the four aspects of the entire digital lending ecosystem, and one of them is the contactless onboarding journey, where we already know that there's a KYC solutions which is coming up in the play. Video KYC has been uh, given some flexibility in terms of reaching out even to the in the SME and the corporate space, and it's a kind of a vast subject. So, but obviously the regulators are promoting that if you are not able to meet up your customer, you can do this KYC, and all this is basically related to the data. So you get more data, you capture the data, you ensure that you are doing the appropriate analytics on top of it, and you are getting more insight about it. Digital address verification is one of the key things which is changing in the current environment. This is basically replacing physical verification of the customer. So digital address verification is done through digital mode. Multiple things happens during this digital address verification. Again, this is a matter where you are collecting the KYC data, geo-tagging, you are doing probably the face match, liveness checks, everything, and that's something which is more and more coming into the use in the lending space. Video personal discussion is another piece where we are connecting. So all the underwriters would like to talk to the clients in the SME space or probably the housing finance space, where interaction is very, very important with the end customers. And how do you do this when there is a problem of meeting face to face, or the customer is not visiting your premise branches, etc., etc. So video personal discussion is another way of meeting with them, collecting the data, and doing some kind of analytics. And one of the great thing which is happening on the video personal discussion side, and we can actually talk about it later. So I was talking to some of the international player a couple of days back, and one of the organization wants to do analytics on top of the videos. So while we have heard about a lot of analytics, which can be your underwriting, behavior, psychometric, etc., but in the through the video PD, can you really do the analytics? And that's again the matter of data. And I was amazed to hear some of the analytics approaches which they were talking about. So maybe briefly we can touch upon that. The second piece is the fraud identification. So fraud identification and identity management is also happening through the technology and data. So all of us know that there is an information which is available either in public domain or through authorized agency, and we are doing the identity management. And this is just about collecting the information, verifying from the source code, verifying from the right authorities that this data belongs to this customer. And if I'm Pratyush and I'm saying that I claim that this is my Aadhaar number, that belongs to me. Again, it's a game of the data, and we call it the alternate data because we just see this about the identity. We just see this establishing their addresses, and then probably we just forget it because we have done the underwriting and we have moved on. But is there a use case for this data subsequently once you have given the loan to the customer? That's one of the things which we will talk about. Device insight. So device insight is basically again knowing and collecting the information about your device. So today, in current scenario, a lot of people are moving. Institutions are providing direct to consumer access. You have multiple way of accessing a lending industry. You can go through the website, you can go through the loan aggregators, you can go through the mobile app, etc., etc. But in all this case, one of the things which might become problematic for the industry is that if we are really not capturing the device information, IP information, MAC information, considering that these things may lead to the fraud, multiple application coming from the same device, or maybe from a different device, but at the same time in the same location. There are multiple things on this. I think this is one of the place where it is very important for all the financial services to really start capturing information right now and start working on this in terms of building those analytics on top of it and figuring out if there are any frauds which may happen due to this online or say digital interactions with the customers. Third piece is the rise of document transaction management. So this is more of an operational work, but I think this is also important considering that you are doing the documentation digitization or say agreement, etc. It's happening through the digital way where you can set up the workflow, you can take the signature through gesture-based signature, e-sign, etc., etc. So I think there are three ways of taking their signature. That's again the information that how much you are evolving as a digital lending industry and digital company, and this is a operational aspect of it other than the data and technology, but this is good use of the technology. The last piece is advanced analytics and AI. So basically, in an entire ecosystem of lending, if you really go from onboarding till the customer management, at every steps we are doing some processes. Every process has got some of the other data information which is getting which is captured. However, we are using largely these data around only the underwriting purposes, right? And when the customer is onboarded, we probably are not using this in a similar way, these information post disbursement. And before disbursement, yes, we do all kind of analytics and we try to figure out the insight about the customer, what is the hidden pattern of the customer behavior, etc., etc., what is the propensity to default. But once they actually take the loan, but after that it's just overall on a very different way, or say high level monitoring how is the repayment happening, and largely dependencies on the traditional data, right, which is coming from the credit bureaus, or maybe we do some kind of an analytics to do the cross sell and upsell. But how much we are doing to get an insight about the customer, I think that's the last piece where the things are changing, and most of the organizations are looking at it. Now, the core of this entire thing, which is a changing completely the landscape, the way the business was happening and the way business is happening right now, is data and technology. Organizations who have started using the and adopting the newer technology, looking at things, how can the it can become a frictionless journey for the consumer, how can it becomes more robust risk environment where you can really ensure that your underwriting is appropriate, your understanding of the consumer is fully on top of it, and you really understand that what is the customer preference, what is the customer requirement, what is the probability of customer default. All these things will come from the data, and that you need to have a proper way of collecting these informations, and use it on the base of the technology, because you would like frictionless overall journey. So the heart of this is the data and technology, and that's what we have mentioned in this slide. Now, why is the digital lending very important in current scenario? Because I think this is the only way people will get growth opportunity. There are multiple organizations, everybody is doing the same business of lending, insurance, telecom, multiple things, right? How do you ensure that you are ahead of the competition, or you are ahead of your peers? I think this is one of the key things which everybody has to start thinking. And even if we look at today in the current environment around us, we will find some of the names who are doing much better on the digital adoption than some of the rest of the organizations. And why is that? So because they are maybe probably much faster in reaction, they are much faster in adopting some of the newer practices, they are much faster in innovation, and these things are giving them an opportunity for the growth, and probably taking the lead where the industry is going to move towards. Now, what is required to have this growth opportunity? So customers preferences, customer requirement, customer choices have changed today, right? I mean, earlier there was a lot of requirement of personal loan, unsecured loan, for probably travel, for education, for maybe home furnishing, etc., etc. Is this the real requirement in current environment? The answer is probably no. Earlier there was a more of a credit card revolver spender, but not revolver. Now the credit card revolvers are there, so they are actually spending, they are keeping they're revolving their credit limits, and they are paying minimum balance and again paying next month minimum balance. So some of these preferences are changing, which I'm sure all of you are getting through the various reports which is available in public domain, and even from the credit bureau data. So one of the key to growth is growth opportunities to really understand and take it to the client, the products which is required at that point of time. And how would it happen? You may probably need to get more insight about the customer. There are a lot of regulatory framework which is changing, and it has evolved in the last 1.5 years. Multiple things have happened from the regulator side, not in India, globally also this is coming in play. Somebody who is able to easily adopt, quickly react to those changes, and move through the process, I think that's where the growth opportunity is. So RBI come up with some regulation on the KYC amendment on 10th of May. There are many people who are trying to adopt this, that what are the changes, can we do this infrastructure change, can we do this usage of this. So if somebody is able to quickly react to that, understand that, analyze that, and really interpret it well, I think they will take an advantage of using this, because this is something which is available. Public and private sector commitment. So basically, there are industries, so their commitment has to happen. So all the organization has to come forward and make sure that they're committing to this customer requirement, they're committing to the overall environment, and they are probably making sure that what is required in the current market, that's something which is happening. Better financial infrastructure. So all of us are the part of that ecosystem. We are going to create, facilitate, enable those infrastructure where all the lending industry can move faster and in much, much more agile way. And then more and more interoperable access to the customer. So basically providing customer the access points to reach out to the lenders, to reach out to the organizations where they are looking for some kind of a loan or some kind of say financial services. So that's most important thing. Now these things are required, and the top of it, most important is that one has to really be very, very strong and detailed in terms of collecting the various new data sources, even if it was there earlier, using the analytics, figuring out some of the hidden patterns of the past, looking at what is the customer requirement, looking at streamlining the current underwriting process, or probably moving towards the digital underwriting, and ensuring that you are fully compliant. This is leading to the growth opportunity. Now, informations are available. Informations were available earlier also. Most of the organization in this space have spent energy on building some of the analytical model. Is this working today? The answer is no. Was it working earlier? The answer is absolutely yes. Why? Because the things have changed. There is probably more need of looking at the data in a different way. There's a more need of collecting information about the consumer, and not only consumer per se who is coming from to get some kind of services and product from you, but also environment information. So there are some of the information which is available, which is a geography based information. And I think the important thing is that look at blend these information with the information which is available, which is from the repayment, past repayment history, account information, and then coming out with some of the conclusion and inferences which will be very, very useful, and that will give you the growth opportunity. So how do you grow, considering that you have multiple set of data points and you have multiple in past information, repayment information about the customers, right? So
Is it
yeah.
possible to give some examples in on the left side? Because on the left side, what is it required? Uh,
So
can you
example is, yeah, so I understood. So basically you are asking that example of why it is required and what is required. So basically
no,
the
no. For
example is
example,
that I was talking about the say credit card example. So credit card now, as I said, if you're really going and giving more and more credit card, the distribution which was happening earlier in terms of the credit card is not probably the requirement today. It is more of a requirement that people are spending more and people are revolving around this. And that is primarily happening because there is a cash outflow issue. There's a lot of problems in terms of the people where they have lost their jobs. They are living on the credit card and credit card limits. They're spending through that. Earlier, the similar kind of a profile, their requirement was that you want to really get more and more credit card because that's the way industry was moving and everybody had the spending habits and going and spending. Today, it is becoming more of a need-based spending. So probably that product will not really fly. The second example can be, again, I mentioned about, say, in terms of travel loan. So people were taking the loan for the travel purposes, which is not happening currently. Even the education loan, if we look at education loan, which was happening earlier, is this something which is not probably would be required today, and it has not happened in the last couple of years. It may again bounce back, but today, to make sure that you are really able to adjust to this entire environment and you are able to still grow, these are some of the things which you will have, one has to really take care into the consideration. Every organization may not require all these aspects, but most of the organization would require some of those aspects just to make sure. The last point which I've mentioned, what is required, more an interoperable access points. If we are really having a branch model And let's take that one of any of the two-wheeler company who has got the captive finance. Now in that branch model, they were going to the dealership and there they were looking for the finance. Today that sale is anyway not there, but if still somebody needs this, so there are a couple of two-wheeler manufacturers. What they have done is that they have created the entire showroom virtually on their website. You go to that website, you just block the vehicle by 500 rupees or 1,000 rupees token money, and from there on your entire financial journey starts, because you will go through the underwriting process. There will be online video KYC, there will be online underwriting, and you will be said that your loan is approved, and you can actually reach out to the dealership subsequently and give those token, and you take your finance and complete your documentation process. So when you are reaching out directly to the consumer, that is the requirement in the current environment, rather than the earlier one where people were anyway going. I mean, your more objective was that you should attract people to your sale point of sales, but this is not the case today. The case is very different today, and hence these are the things which is required for if you're really looking for the growth opportunity. Okay, so there are, we have spoken about why the technology, why the data is important, but if you look at the entire lending ecosystem, and I would probably divide this into the four aspects: so onboarding, underwriting, collection, customer management. Why is this data which is important, right? So let's look at the onboarding. If you are really going and attracting the customer, so you need to have some basic information about the customer, or maybe that geography or a preferences of those segment. And if you look at any company which starts with the any new product, they think that what is my strike zone, which market I will go, which is the segment which I will target. And the definition was prime segment, near prime segment, subprime segment, new to credit, existing to bureau, etc., etc. But when you are doing an onboarding and you are trying to do the acquisition, you need to do some basic data capturing, which can help you in terms of doing the customer profiling. Then only you can put this in a different segment. You can do appropriate customer selection. Once you have done the profiling, you know that these are the segments where we need to go. And then we need to take these customers to our ecosystem, make them offer those services and product which is required. Not everybody requires every kind of a product and every services. Maybe also you offer the same services but on a different price point, because your risk levels are different. And I think that is slightly more detailed, but I think first level is that getting criteria, figuring out that this is a geography, this kind of a profile we are looking at, and there your acquisition strategy starts. Obviously you are capturing information that this guy is going through the social media, probably has gone and figured it out that I need a cash loan, or I need a advanced loan, or say a payday loan, and then you reach to some website and you figure it out that this is the information which is there and I need this kind of a loan. So you are able to filter it there, because that's a gating criteria for you. Now once you have done that, the customers are coming to your door, then the next level is that you are doing underwriting. Now in underwriting, objective is that of this data, whatever information we are collecting is, and maybe we are collecting a lot of information to do this and complete this process, and hence you need to do the risk evaluation. You are doing multiple things. All of us know that we do identity, we do intent check, we do capacity check, which is from the credit bureau, some of the information on the spending patterns through the bank statement, salary slip, etc., etc. One has to also figure it out the frauds aspect. So what is the probability or propensity to fraud? Is this customer intent clear? And obviously the information has to be collected. There are some services which is available where you are using this. Maybe you have your own scorecard of the fraud, identifying those potential frauds, and then streamlining and making the entire process digital. Excuse me. So today, if you look at underwriting, one of the things which generally we are getting stuck is how do we do this, really identify the intent problem, and how do we really ensure that capacity. Identity is probably more easy, because you know that for PAN you can go and you can connect with the NSDL and you can figure it out, this PAN belongs to him. How will you figure out intent? Whether he's making the payment regularly, is his intention clear? There are some fraud database which you will do. You will go to the credit bureau, you will check that You will also do some internal analytics and building that scorecard in terms of the fraud aspect, figuring out the propensity to fraud. But at the same time, there are many information which is available or maybe can be used to also figure out what has been the pattern of shopping for the credit, what has been the pattern of spending, what has been pattern of spending on the utilities or some other thing, and probably that can lead to your entire analysis in terms of figuring out what is the potential of fraud, right? We will talk about this in detail when we speak about the data points. Sorry, some question?
Yeah, so see, I mean, credit bureau check, gives us a perspective of if the proposed borrower is eligible or not. But that does not help any lending institution to kind of analyze whether there is a fraud anticipated. So how do I detect fraud? So currently, I think India is talking at the Malia and the Choksi kind of frauds which have happened. But in any kind of consumer durable, how would a bank detect that there is going to be a possible fraud when I give money? I mean, what kind of analytic tools are probably used cases right now in terms of identifying that there can be a fraud and that can be prevented?
Okay, good
Pratish sir,
question.
just a follow up on this also. What could be the alternate sources of data apart from data which is collated at onboarding, underwriting, and probably transactions? If the customer is my savings account customer,
Hmm.
what could be alternate other sources of data?
Sorry. Yes, sure. So I think both the questions may be answered in the next slide, where I'm actually putting this entire data points, and I think those would be more interesting to know that. But at this point of time, to answer the question which was asked previously, in terms of the data which is available with the credit bureau, and that is something which cannot help you in terms of finding out the fraud. In my view, probably that is not the right answer. Maybe you can still find the fraud from the credit bureau data, and I'll tell you how. So if you can really think of today when you get the credit bureau data, what are the information one has to look, and what is the information we are looking when we are underwriting? We are looking overall exposure. We are looking if there are any DPDs. We are looking if what is the score, credit score, because they are defining our underwriting technology. Bureaus say that if it is 800, it is best. If it is 600, it is not good, right? Are we really capturing or using the other variables which is available in the credit report and building an analytics on top of it to find out if the customer may default in the future? So one way is that you can develop your own fraud scorecard. You don't need to really make it very complicated. You can still make it some rule-based fraud aspects, right? However, for that also, if you're taking the information from the credit bureau report, there are 367 variables in the credit bureau report. We just see 5 or 10. And it's not that any organization is not using. Some of the organizations are using it and building the scorecard on top of it, or some of the rule engine on top of it to figure it out whether this customer may default in the future. That's a repayment. It's a capacity aspect, but in the intent aspect, you can still figuring it out. And if you are using the inquiry information, maybe that can be one of the trigger. This is a very small example, but there can be other examples also which we will talk about. So I believe using the information, and that is the whole intent of today's conversation. We have a lot of information, but we are generally just focusing on what is the practice which is happening in the market. And the market practice is that you use some 10 variables, 12 variables, and forget rest of the variables. That is where we are losing on, and we are not able to do this. So if I have to look at the credit bureau report, I think I would look at 5 things more importantly. Score is just a gating criteria for me, not even looking at, because, and that is why the gating criteria, if somebody is building a score on a 800 million transaction records, that is more powerful than what I am building on my 1 million records as a lender. So that is a gating criteria. But when you go to the next level, the pattern with which the person is taking, consumer is taking the loans, what is the entire lending life cycle for that customer. Did he go for first two-wheeler? Did he go for first used car? After that, 3 months he has taken the personal loan. After that, 8 months he has taken the home loan. Is he taking quite frequently the personal loan? What is the overall exposure? How many inquiries was there? Right? Is he going only to the NBFC? Is he going only to the regional rural bank? Is he going only to the PSUs? He also has an MNC credit card. I mean, honestly, are we using this information? If no, I think the answer is there, that we must use it. And then when we can get into the detail and we really figure it out, that how is the lending pattern which is happening. So I tell you one of the example in one of my previous employment with a very large NBFC. One analysis we did on 1 million record, and we completely had a clear understanding that this is my segment where I may have a trouble in the future, because that segment was taking loans in a very different way. So person has taken first a small ticket personal loan, immediately after the used car, then went for the personal loan in the 3 months. And if you look at in a 1 year, the overall borrowing was there for say 4 or 5 services. Is this the requirement of a general people, considering that you are already exposed and you were at zero at one point of time, and maybe your overall exposure has grown 300% time? That's a clear lead indicator for your fraud. And when we realized after doing this analysis on 1 million, we had very clearly identified 67% of that portfolio was absolutely great, because normally that is the way people will go for the financial product and services, right? Because you also have industry information available. But 33% were the cases where we had put it in the 3 segment: residual risk, early warning signal, and clearly of potential fraud. Now these 3 categories, and then we were monitoring, and obviously every organization has to do this. That will give you an insight about using even the credit bureau data to figuring out potential fraud. Today we just look at the credit bureau data as a just 3, 4, 5 scores. Largely, maybe some organizations are looking at this in much detail, and because they have their own scorecard, they don't care about what bureaus are providing. But in my view, I think these are some of the ways you can look at identifying the fraud even from the credit bureau data. Now, other than the credit bureau data, if somebody is new to credit, how do you still do that? That is a place where you need to collect the alternate data. And that alternate data can also be merged with some of the industry level data, which can be survey data, maybe geography based information, the industry based information, and you can figure it out. Really not figure it out, but maybe you can get to know more about the customer, that is there a potential fraud. And if somebody is new to credit and coming up for the first time, capacity is established, identity is established. I think intent is even if 50% you are able to establish based on the stability, based on understanding of the profession, or say if self-employed, or say agriculture, anything, I think then the intent of 50% will be in a good favor for you to kind of really process that case and move forward. Now, one answer of identifying can we really, what is this thing? I think those are the things. It depends on in which segment you are, and then those segments you can actually work on various data points and figuring it out. So one of the product which again I'm coming from my experience is that one of the big marketplace, we just said that we want to work with you on a stock data. Let me figure it out. What can we offer? And I was a part of one NBFC. What is the digital footprint of the customer? How many times he is coming on your website? What kind of a loan he is searching? Every time he has to do the OTP, is he doing from his own mobile OTP? Is he doing from a different number? Is he doing from the same IP address? Is his location changing? And we built a product which was very, very successful, because you clearly figured out that 2 million records, 1 million records are almost doing absolutely great in terms of they're coming again on the right time. They're going for the similar kind of thing, same mobile number, same IP, same location. So probably looks that stability is more, and you can figure it out that there is a less chances of this guy doing the fraud. So I guess there's a lot of different ways of looking at it. These are some of the ideas and direction in which we can start thinking of. Let's move on. Collections. So after underwriting, the next one is the collection. So probability of delinquencies. I think at the time of underwriting, we all do this when we are looking at the details in terms of credit bureau records, that whether he is there, whether he is not there, is he making the right payment, right time, what is the DPD, credit card ka DPD is different than loan ka DPD. So you have to look at what kind of a loans is and how is it. So you will figure it out that whether there is a probability of delinquency. Early warning signal. So there are a lot of early warning signals. So one of the things which is in practice right now with some of the large private sector banks is doing, and definitely I can talk about this because this is a good practice and a best practice I can see. But you are doing the customer verification when you are actually giving the loan. But when you give the loan after 3 months, is there any a process where you are really figuring out where is the customer? Is he at the same address? Has he moved from somewhere? Has he changed his employment? And these are the lead indicator for the early warning signal. And some of those steps like doing maybe video interaction, maybe some SMS campaign, maybe some just geotagging, sending digital address verification, or doing some post disbursement verification. Those are the things which will lead to the early warning signals. And there are digital way of doing this. And those data points become very, very important. You can also figure it out collection strategies based on whatever is the response of those early warning signals, because you know that there is a classification of these accounts, high risk, low risk, medium risk, right? High risk, you need to have a different treatment path. Every 1 month you will send some other upsell opportunity. Let's see if the customer applies, or maybe you will send that as a reminder till next 6 months. You may not send the reminder for the low risk guys. So these are different ways, and all this will lead, and this is happening because the data is being used, but the data is being used only which has been collected till the time of underwriting. After that, probably the data is not being collected. And that is where the most important point is. Customer management is one piece which is clearly missing in the industry. We do the lot of cross-sell and upsell. And I also get a lot of cross-sell and upsell calls. But probably people are also missing my credibility because they have not gone through my latest information. Have I changed the employment? Have I changed the location? Have I changed my preferences and patterns have changed? Am I in the similar job profile? So this is where we are missing on collecting the data and information and not keeping a track on it. So as I said, most of us are just keeping the data till the time we are to underwrite. The important thing is that we need to also make sure that you are doing the collection appropriately, you are monitoring the collection, you are doing the customer management, because once a customer has come to you as an organization for financial services, why should he go to somebody else unless you don't have that product? And even if you have that, you don't have that product, can you really build a business model that you only facilitate his next requirement? And that is where a lot of concepts are coming in these days, where people are saying that, okay, I have a partnerships and I'll provide you this particular thing from there. Large payment banks, wallet companies, they're doing the same thing, right? They're making the business model out of this. And why they have been successful? Because they have the data. They have the information. They're using that information appropriately to make sure that the customers are there and they are not leaving them and going somewhere else, even for those services which they are providing. So in my view, if you look at the entire digital lending value chain, the data becomes very, very important. And obviously to process that data, you need to have a technology and you need to have a deep AI and ML based analytics where you can really figure it out about the customer insight and build different kind of a model. I would recommend one thing for everyone. And in fact, most of you are doing, but still just see that the information which is available and the information which we are using, there is a difference. Even if we are going with the multi-bureau approach, you'll find that multiple places we are pulling out report, but are we using this? We are just using some of the top line information, not really the detail. And if you're not using, maybe that there will be some insight, there will be some pattern, there will be some anomalies which can lead and give you an indication that how do you have to absorb this data. So all of you are aware, traditional data sources, non-traditional data sources. I'll keep it very brief because I'm just conscious of the time and I have a few more things to cover. Traditional data is whatever is available related to your accounts information, your repayment history, past history, anything which is not the part of the traditional becomes your non-traditional, which is your alternate data. And these are also called alternate data because in India, we are finding that there is a traditional data, there's a credit bureau. Do we have an alternate data bureau? Do you think that even for your customer, you should have an alternate data bureau? Because you are processing, you have all the rights to keep those data with you. Can this become useful for you in the future? How many times a customer is changing his address on the Aadhaar card? How many times he's changing his voter card? Is the voter card's address same and the future Aadhaar card address is same, or is there is a difference? I mean, but these are some of the things where the data is available, but probably the technology is not available, or maybe that deep analytics is not available to really figure it out that this is what we want to do. But I think this is going to be one of the important practice which most of the organization will adopt very soon, because I think we are moving towards a biometric data capturing. So this is the need of the hour, and it is important, and this will lead you identifying the right customer, identifying the anomalies in the customer's information, identifying what is the potential fraud which will happen. Because as long as we don't know about those information, we will never be able to establish what is the data and what is the inference out of it, because we are just looking at it in an absolute form. We are not really connecting and building a trend out of it, and that is where the importance of the data and technology comes in. I think one question which was being asked, the types of the data and the sources. I think there's a lot of sources. So one is level one, financial account data information, which all of us are aware of. So I think I'll not spend much time on this. This is the transaction level data, your credit bureau information, your CASA deposits, whatever is available. You are working with the bank, you have all those information. This is very easy to use. But just one point here, are we using all the information which is available, or we are just using what is a good thing and what is the extremely bad thing, or we are not really trying to establish the trend? That is one thing which we have to look at in terms of the analytics group, in terms of underwriting group. Level 2 data, which is more of a bill payment data, and these are the types of data which is being used. This is the data which is available. This data is available in three forms. It is available in public domain, it is available through authorized agencies, and this is also available from the service provider. And there is a process for this. So there are many enablers who are providing these information, and they are connected to, say, maybe telecom provider, they are connected to DTH, or maybe they are connected to those available information which is in the public domain. So electricity bill, there are some 20, 25, 28 electricity board, and all board provides this information. For you, is this possible to really go and figure out that how to collect this information? The answer is yes. There are enablers in the market. There are service providers who are providing this information. You pass on the input, you get the output, and you figure out that in that output, you're figuring out that in the electricity bill, this guy has been spending 560 rupees month on month. There is no overdue. His address is this as per the electricity board, but he has given some other information, or he's doing the digital address verification for some other places. You know what I'm trying to talk about? You have multiple set of information. How are you triangulating? One is availability of this information. Second is processing that information for your benefit. So in utilities, you have electricity, you can get it very clearly. You have mobile phone information, which is what is the spending pattern on a mobile. So you can get that information. You have a DTH services. Cable information is not very useful, but it's a similar thing. Maybe somewhere you may find this information also, but DTH is definitely available with the service provider. There are rental informations. Now, how do you figure out the rental information? This is not available in public domain, but there are ways to figuring out that what is the rent he is paying. Okay, if it is through the digital mode of payment, you can clearly figure it out. You take the rent agreement, you just do the OCR, figure out what's the rent, what's the address. Is this the same transaction happening on the books, or say bank statement, or is there any other proof? I think that's the information which is available. And that information can be used even from the underwriting and a capacity perspective, and from the fraud perspective. The GST information is available in public domain. So one company is coming from the SME, you are just trying to figure it out, not getting into the detail. I just need to know this company, is this company filing GST returns on time? You go and you figure out that last quarter he is not filed, last to last quarter he is not filed, the last time he filed three quarters back. That information is available. That may be a lead indicator for your underwriting. That may be a lead indicator for your fraud. And this information is again available in the full API. So all this data is going to establish the spending pattern, behavior of the customers. And that will be very, very useful when you are doing the underwriting. The next level of information is again the lifestyle and information which is in terms of capacity, and again the intent which can establish public record and property. So this data is available many places. You will find that the public land records are available, where you can actually go to those state website and that information is available. Some APIs are still there where you can actually figure out that this guy owns this much of land, this is the property, this is the information which is available. Even on the mortgage side, I'm sure most of you are doing, if you are from the lending side, that if you're doing into the mortgage loan, you are going to the CERSAI and verifying this mortgage is actually hypothecated to somebody, or is this free. Education detail is available. I'm not sure if you are aware, but you can really in the real time, you can figure it out. The insurance agent, chartered accountant, doctors, cost accountant, company secretary, this information is available. We are one of the enabler, and we are working with some of the banks where for education loan and a professional loan, this data is being used. Insurance company use this very, very appropriately. This information is available based on you pass on the PAN information, you take this information and you figure it out. Now, one of the insurance company is also using this for the early warning signal. So what happens? I am an insurance agent. Today I am working with, say, insurance company X, and I have taken that license. So if I am going for the some work next time to the Y will ask me, are you already an agent? Yes, I am the agent and I am doing such a business. This is what, etc., etc. And the Y will go and verify from the same portal. Now you will figure it out. Today, Y has seen that this is working with X. Absolutely, the data is available. He is an insurance agent of X. Fine, you have underwritten. You said, okay, you will also do our work. Now, after 3 months, that Y company is still doing the early warning check on me. Is he still working with X? And you will find that terminated. That becomes an early warning. Why am I terminated from X? And that's the way the data is being used. But in a normal scenario, when you are onboarding an insurance agent, you are doing the check. Subsequently, you are not doing the check. So you are actually not utilizing the service which is available. And hence my point. There is a data information available. We are generally focused towards we have to take the best out of the best and we have to onboard. But after that, are we really focusing on that? Probably the answer is no. If no, then that's the way we can look at it. Employment data. There are various ways of doing the employment data. We don't need to probably every time go to the consumer. If I have applied for a loan with, say, X bank, they want to do my employment check. How will they? They can check whether I am available on the PF database associated with this employer. They can check whether my email ID exists. If I am working with Authbridge, my email ID is so and so. Do I need to send a mail to Pratyush on this email ID? The answer is no. You can still figure it out. There are services which is available. The third level is you can also figure out with my declared information is Authbridge. My email ID, you get no response. My PF, 3 months back, yes, established that in February I had the PF account through Authbridge. Are you sure that I'm working with Authbridge? The answer is probably no. Then you go for the probably next level of figuring it out. The data which is available in the public domain, LinkedIn is available. That's not a tested data. That's not a certified data, but that's one of the data point which can be seen in combination of these three information. Maybe you can reach out to some of the employment verification company and figure it out. Is this guy working with this? Have you done a verification for this employment in this space? So this is a combination of 4 data points. And from this, you're not going to the customer. You're just figuring out through these information available, data points available, whether he is an employee of this organization or not. So look at these are some of the things. These are some of the detailed things. We generally miss these points, or probably we just look at it in isolation, that one data point, one inference. No, maybe 5 data points, 5 inference. I'm not sure if you are into a SME lending, but if you provide a company name, through company name, we can provide you the SIN. Through SIN, you can get the DIN. Through DIN, you can get to know that Pratyush as a director in X company, how many other companies I am the director, and in those companies, what kind of charges are there on assets. Now, one company name information, and you reach to this information. This is the connection. And this is the way you can establish my credibility. You can establish the potential of me doing the fraud, potential of me repaying your loan. Next level of information is retail purchase information, which you can get through the bank statement, you can get through the credit card statement. And how do you do this? Maybe in your some of the product, you would like to just figure out what is a credit card statement I would like to take, and then you say that I'll launch some services, a product based on that. And then those information, you'll figure it out how many times, what purchase, what kind of a purchase pattern is there. Or even from bank statement, we see what is the salary getting credited. Is there any anomalies? Is there any cash deposit? I mean, figure it out how many POS transaction is doing, how many credit card payment is doing, how many policy payment is doing. All this will lead to some of the insights about the customer. And initially you will start with a smaller rule, but probably over a period of time, when you are going to establish this, that I had processed this bank statement, as per this guy was good, or say out of 10 he was 9, but his repayment is actually reflecting back that his repayment is say 6, he's not doing the great repayment, then I need to correct my rules. And what will you do? You are actually putting up another data point and just overlaying is based on the processing what you did, what you did at the initial stage. So these are the different levels of data point which can be used in the lending ecosystem, even in the insurance or maybe some other places. But I think if it is not being used, that's the beauty, that one has to really look at this information. And all this information is available. There are ways to get these information in a digital way. The last piece is, which I'm going to talk about, is the level 4 data, which is the social media data. This might not be very, very relevant today, but there are organizations who are doing the business, unsecured lending business, only on the social data. And you have this information that this guy is going on a Facebook, his generally preferences are this is his circle, this is the profile which we have created. Maybe he's a early jobber, maybe he's a great professional, he's age of 40 plus, age of 60 plus, age of 50 plus, different preferences, different choices. You have all this information available through the social data. And that social data can be collected, may not be very, very useful today, but I think somewhere this can also correlate with the information if you are really processing the information, and you'll figure it out that what are the preferences, what is the lifestyle of this customer, and that can become very, very important. Psychometric is spoken about, not very actively used currently, and I don't know if it is successful or not. I'm not very sure whether if somebody is asking me 10 questions and I'm actually basis that they're interpreting my answer. I think today it is not very important, but recently I have seen some of these things which is being used very, very efficiently in at least in UK market, Mexico, Israel, because we are actually partnered with some of the players there, and we find that they work it very, very efficiently, and as per them it works. I don't know in India if it works and if it will work, but psychometric is basically asking the question, your key stroke pattern, your really. And one of the discussion which I had a few days back, where on the video, so the way I am talking, the way I am speaking, when somebody is asking the question and I am responding, I think all those things are also being used as a data point to figure it out about my personality, about my behavior, and then that will lead to the finally input to the underwriting engine. So video PD analytics, that's a video personal description analytics. That's what something which is also large organization, global organizations are exploring, and I'm sure some of the global banks are also using this. So these are some of the different, and I've just tried to put it based on the use cases. That level 1 data everybody uses, level 2 some, level 3 unstructured data, are we ready to use this, level 4 is very, very unstructured. You have to put together this entire data in a good ecosystem. You have to build it in a right framework, and then you can start using it. Is this enough, or is this the next level to go to the data? There is a next level to go to the data, but today we have not utilized it. Let us first utilize this, explore this completely, figure out. And I'm sure after this, when you are thinking about this, or you have already thought, what is the data point which we are not using and how can we use this? Every data has got some relevance, and we must start using it and try to inference out of it. And that is where we are doing as a business also. So I'm also looking at what kind of a repository we can create. Why credit bureau is the only way to solve the problem of individuals? This can only solve 400 million people. 300 million people it can't solve. I was talking to some of the regulator senior folks yesterday, and I generally shared this idea that regulators are all talking about only this. Why can't we have this information? Can we create something this also in alternate data space? Because this will lead to most, and some very interesting conversation which came. Maybe if those are the plans, then those are the things which will come up, and we are in the same ecosystem. We can actually look at utilizing those information. But to be prepared to utilize those things, we need to first encash that we have level 2, level 3 information. Are we able to process some of these information? I'm sorry, I'm running out of time, and I'll skip some of these slides. So these are the alternate data ecosystem. So I'll just talk about this, that having these data is not enough. I think the information has to be appropriate. The information has to be from the compliant sources. There has to be depth of the data. And I've been talking about the trends. Many a time we are just focused upon collecting that information, but collecting that information over a period of time will give you a trend. If you have done an Aadhaar check of somebody, or say voter ID or driving license check of somebody 2 years back, please go and take those 100 cases and do the testing. What is the address today in the Aadhaar and the driving license? You may find some inference out of it. So the depth and the breadth of the data is important, because you need to establish the trend. What is the use of this data? A vehicle, you have financed a car, you have taken the RC, you have verified that registration number is fine. Is this available in the stolen RC database today? Have you checked that? Are you doing that delinquent account of your car loans and really figuring it out, that and it is available? This data is available through an API. You can do through a bulk. You can do. There is a stolen vehicle RC number which is there as a part of the repository. Can you use this data for any kind of model, any kind of analytical model? Is the most important thing. And in my view, all the data is important, but there are many data which can't really lead to the inference. So probably we can just park it for the time being, but we can use the rest of the information. What is the value which is coming out of this data is the most important thing. So data accuracy, sources, these are the very, very important thing. What is the depth of the data? What is the use case of this information is going to be something which one has to think. So once you get to know more about the customer, you have to be very clear. How do you have to use this information, right? One of the key things when you are collecting these information is that there are many places where you need to have an explicit consent. And that's something which we miss many a times. As a lender, when I was part of that lender ecosystem, yes, of course, I was also conscious of this, and we were missing. So we have to be very clear that where it requires an explicit consent, you have to mention and you have to take that consent. There are many places where you don't read a explicit consent. Implicit is fine. Basically, you are saying that customer is giving you the right to do all kind of a verification, all kind of a checks through your company, through external third party, or through some of the service provider, which is fine. But if you're doing the Aadhaar check, you need explicit consent. If you're doing a GST, full GST check, you need an explicit consent. And those explicit consent must be obtained before you are taking these information further for the underwriting purposes. This is very important point, so I thought I should mention it here. So basically, these are the challenges and some of the ways through the data you can overcome these challenges. Largely, I have covered most of these things in my previous slides, and nothing much to at least explain it here. But if there are any questions, I would like to take the question now. I'm just conscious of the time.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Shiva. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Shiva,
Yes.
can you quickly
Yeah,
introduce yourself so that he'll get a view of what you're looking at? Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. My name is Shiva. I'm actually working for American Express as an engineering director in Bangalore.
Hi,
So
Shiva.
question is, you talked about the different levels of data. Especially, I'm more curious in level 2 and level 3. How do we know where we can get this kind of APIs available publicly? What's the best way of getting that?
Okay, so as I said, there are three ways you can access this data, and one of the enabler is even Oddbridge provides this, these APIs, which is available. So, but there are three ways. So even when we provide this information based on, say, you have available information in the public domain. So suppose we are not authorized to provide the credit bureau data, but we still provide the credit bureau data because many people want some analytics on top of it, and we are connected to the bureau because these are the authorized agencies who can provide this information, right? So you will find some of the players which is there. Otherwise, there are who has already set up on providing these kind of an APIs. Otherwise, actually, there are different types of information which is available. So maybe some places you can go on a electoral side and you can figure it out. The voter ID is there. Aadhaar side, Aadhaar information is available. But you will have to build those technology to really go and figuring it out. There are some service providers like us who are available in the market who can give you the ready to consume plug and play model of the APIs.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Pratish Anand this side. First of all, thanks for the enriching session on data. It's too much of information to stop ourselves for asking questions. My first question is around, don't you think there's in a scope of aggregation since a lot of data is in a manual format? You kind of research agencies can get into aggregation model and create some file-based or session-based charging so that the cost of credit itself get reduced for the lender or the kind of an institution which approaches you.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you in between, some network issue, but I understand that you're asking that is this the data available in a manual mode, correct? That's the question. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Sorry.
So I'll repeat the question.
Yeah.
The data is available in a manual mode, and do you see any scope of you kind of agencies getting into aggregator mode so that the format will be in a easier way and will be a license-based approach for the user or lender to get it frequently also, like if not only in the time of underwriting, because underwriting is the event when everybody is enforcing to get it right. Yes, this kind of answer we are seeking as a business person.
Yeah.
But if you go ahead for a journey, the predictive analysis frequency should be higher. Once you kind of research agency get into aggregator mode, I'll have a license-based mode when I'll have frequently triggers from agencies, and you will be updating all data points since you will be aggregator. So is there any scope or automations?
Look, today it is appearing to be difficult becoming an aggregator. But if you ask me honestly, my vision is the same, and I think me and Samir keeps on talking about it. I think there has to be some way of accessing it in a much more structured way. Also, not only this, but also that there are a lot of information which is available on social media. Can we really create a repository out of this? I think this is where we are trying to head towards some of those conversations happening at the industry level. Future, it may happen. At this point of time, there's a lot of restrictions in terms of storing any of the PII information. And hence, it becomes difficult for even the companies like us to really store the information. We just provide the services. We process that information on your behalf, give it back to you. Nobody can keep this data unless it is your customer. So future may happen, but at this point of time, it looks it is going to take some time.
Fair enough. Can I be allowed for a second question also?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So I was just been exposed to one of the scenario wherein we were sourcing a project from US, and we were given 90 kind of parameters, and we need to validate them with some sort of people manually, like, and those guys were creating some indexing kind of thing out of those. So can we create at least this kind of engine so that put in all these parameters and validate? Not storing it, but at least that engine should work rather than going into manual work.
It's already there. It's already there, and companies are providing. We are also providing. So as I said, we are processing that data. So you pass on a few of the variables, and we just pull this information, we process it, and give it in a way the way you can consume it. Because otherwise, it becomes very difficult for you to consume the unstructured data, and that's where companies like us work. A lot of US companies, in fact, I'm working with three of the US companies where this is the same problem. They're getting, in fact, they take a lot of information about the OFAC, World Bank check, and US sanction in a structured way through us. And they're working with a lot of Indian companies based out of Bangalore and Bombay, where they're just getting this data process because it's unstructured information. So my objective of putting this, the entire ecosystem has to be very strong in terms of the data, was the same, that informations are available, but it is available in a very, very unstructured way. Some places you need to really work on the what is the information which one can consume and come out with the right inference to use in your entire processing. So information, having a right information and having a structured information is most important thing.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Hello, Rashmi here. My question is not related to data, but it is related to, like, in one of the slide it was mentioned about digital address verification. So how are you, like, authenticating that this is the actual address of the applicant and not the fake, or is not faking it, or doing it from some other place? So
Yeah,
what
good
is our
question.
part G?
Good question. No, I'll answer this. So this is a question we face many times and most of the forums. So in a digital address verification, what happens is that you are creating a 1 minute of self-serve journey for the customers. So suppose if you are a bank and you want to do my digital address verification. So obviously you have taken the application information, my information, basic information, my name, date of birth, ID proof, anything, ID proof, and my address, right? And you generate a link which comes to my mobile and WhatsApp or say mobile, and I open that link. The moment I open that link, I get obviously I have to consent that I'm doing this. This is the address, and I'm doing this process myself. There are some 4 checks which happens, and 1 minute I have to complete that process. The process is like, I select my language, preferred language, if it is Hindi, English, Gujarati, Marathi, whatever. I select that language. I take one selfie. The first level is a selfie. I click my selfie. The moment I take the selfie, in the background, the selfie gets matched with my ID proof which I have submitted to the bank, right? Second level is that I'll have to update one of the address proof. So I actually update the address proof. So suppose if it is driving license, I take the picture of driving license. The OCR happens, the driving license gets verified. This is the right address which is mentioned on the driving license. I have 3 set of information already available. I have my face match. I have my declared information address where the GPS tag is there. I have second level of that driving license, same address has been verified. The third is that while I'm doing this, this is my GPS which I'm tracking, and this is a GPS address. It is again getting passed on. Now all this triangulation happens, and we figure it out whether this customer is there and he's doing that process. Objective is, the fourth objective is that I need to really figure it out that I am doing this, not that my video is doing or somebody else is, or my photo and this thing. So we also do the real time, this a liveness check. So you figure it out, okay, this customer is present, customer himself is doing this process, customer is declaring that he's at this address, his address has been passed on earlier, even the address proof he has given, it's happening, and the GPS is also getting tagged. The triangulation of all this information, and there is a rule on top of it, you figure it out that too. 90%, and that's established data which we are doing with 90% of the cases, this process is able to verify whether the customer is staying at this address or not. Now this process you can do any point of time during the day. You can do it in the 9 o'clock in the morning, you can do 7 o'clock in the evening. right? And you can do multiple times because this is 1 minute job. You have to do 4 clicks and you are done with this. So that's the way you are establishing that this customer is staying there. Suppose 10% is the exception. You're still not sure. Anyway, if you're doing the high ticket item, you can still process your case because you have other information and triangulating, and then you are doing the underwriting decision. Maybe after 30 days, you again initiate the same link. Don't go through the full process. Just go through the one process of, say, taking a selfie. You again find that the Pratyush is doing this, same address. It's a Sunday afternoon. The data points are available. If it is not there, probably he is visiting because, but when I am starting this, I'm just declaring that I'm at the same address. So that's the way we are doing it. And this is early adoption, but market is actually going after this.
Thank you. Thank you so much for clarity.
Thank you.
Any more questions, please?
Yeah, basically we are, this is Anand here. Basically we are talking about this kind of a data analytics for the lending part. So is there any financial institutions or banks using it for even the account, like liability side also, onboarding the quality accounts and then over a period of time suggesting the relevant and more suitable, more profitable products to the customers?
On a liability side, money is coming. So obviously you're not too much bothered. So obviously the checks are slightly at a lower stage, but from liability, when you're moving towards the assets or side, then actually you do a lot of checks. On the liability side, largely the informations are getting captured on address verification and the identity verification. Obviously, you're doing the KYC, you can do the offline KYC, you can do the video KYC, you can do digital KYC, CKYC, all 4 KYCs you can do. But if you have to establish, so I have walked into the SBI branch and I'm saying that this is my address proof. So obviously the best check which you will do is that this address proof is genuine. That's number one. And as per the data of, say, address proof I'm giving Aadhaar, as per Aadhaar, my address is the same. That's the best check which will be done at that point of time. So we have not found beyond this anything which is happening. Identity and address and KYC is the 3 checks which is happening. Any more question?
Any more?
Sameer?
Space is just one more.
So this is again evolving, and the whole idea should be that you keep on changing the whole models as time goes by, right?
Sorry, I was not clear on this. It was not audible clearly.
Just a moment.
Hi, Pratyush, am I audible?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
So the point or the learning that I take is as the times are changing and as more data points are available, you keep on evolving your models, and over time you keep on improving them, right? So alternate data can, tomorrow Sahimati is coming up, so you can probably get recurring information about other accounts and all those things. So this model needs to keep on evolving, right?
Absolutely. One is that model needs to keep on evolving. I think I'll take a step back and I'll tell you, and I'll strongly recommend this. Even the data which is available, are we really using it today? Or what is the information which we are going and asking, or we are probably not even asking with the customers because we feel that this data is not available. So one is that this data is available. There are enablers who are providing this information. Take those informations, at least start capturing it. That's the first level. Capturing it and start using it. Then evolution will happen over a period of time once you will be able to establish this trend. Some of the trends and data point which I spoke about, that how is I don't know, if you're doing a multiple types of loan, how is that loan cycle for one individual customer? Have you really mapped that? If not, let's do that. If we will do this, we will really get to know that what is the data which is information, how is this trend looking like, whether this customer is in the right direction, etc., etc. So my suggestion would be, first, see what is the data which is available, start using it fully for some of the other purposes because you'll find it underwriting and post disbursement. Second, then start capturing more of the information and then evolve over a period of time. So I think those 3 things I will recommend.
Yeah, I think the session was good, great, and I think we, as usual, Pratyush, your sessions go slightly over, which just shows the engagement and your passion for guiding us, right? So I think this time I at least I picked up few more new things on it, and I'll come back to you. So this is super, and thank you, Pratish, for your session. Thank you.
Thanks, Samir. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.